That feeling at 2 in the morning when your eyes open and you do not know why. You were not dreaming. There was no noise. Your body just woke you up and now you are lying there. Heart beating slightly faster than it should, mind suddenly alert. A faint restlessness in your chest that you cannot name. You check the clock. 2:15. You close your eyes. You try to fall back asleep. 20 minutes later, you are still awake. And by morning, you feel like you barely slept at all. Most people over 60 describe this pattern to me as insomnia. They say they are light sleepers. They say it runs in their family. They say they have always been this way. But when I look at the research behind middle-of-the-night waking in adults over 60, a very specific metabolic pattern emerges that has nothing to do with stress, nothing to do with genetics, and everything to do with what is happening to your blood sugar between midnight and 4 in the morning. And the research suggests that a single cup of a specific drink, consumed 30 to 60 minutes before bed, addresses both sides of this problem simultaneously, the glucose side and the sleep side, through mechanisms that have been tested in randomized controlled trials. I am Dr. Reed Ashford. I have spent over 20 years studying the research behind aging, metabolic health, and sleep physiology. And today, I am going to walk you through exactly what is happening inside your body during those nighttime awakenings, why blood sugar is almost certainly involved, what drink the clinical evidence supports, and how to prepare it in a way that maximizes both the glucose lowering and the sleep promoting effects. No exaggeration, no miracle claims, just the published evidence and a practical protocol you can start tonight. Before I tell you what the drink is, you need to understand the mechanism that makes it work. I call it the midnight glucose rebound. Here is what happens. When you eat dinner, particularly a dinner that contains refined carbohydrates, white rice, bread, pasta, potatoes, your blood sugar rises. Your pancreas releases insulin. The insulin drives glucose out of the bloodstream and into your cells. Blood sugar drops. In a younger person with sensitive insulin signaling, this process is smooth and gradual. The blood sugar comes down slowly, stabilizes, and stays stable through the night. But after 60, two things change. First, the initial insulin response is often excessive relative to the glucose load because the pancreas is compensating for reduced insulin sensitivity in the tissues. It overshoots. Second, the liver, which is supposed to release a small, steady trickle of stored glucose overnight to keep blood sugar stable while you sleep, becomes less precise in its timing and quantity. The result is a pattern that sleep researchers and endocrinologists have documented extensively. Blood sugar drops too far in the early hours of the morning, typically between 1 and 3 in the morning. The body detects this drop and interprets it as a metabolic emergency. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline to trigger the liver to dump glucose back into the bloodstream. Blood sugar spikes back up. And that cortisol and adrenaline surge is exactly what wakes you up. Your eyes open, your heart is beating, you feel alert and restless, and you have no idea that the reason you are awake is that your blood sugar just crashed and then rebounded while you were unconscious. That is the midnight glucose rebound. It is not insomnia. It is a metabolic event disguised as a sleep problem. And treating it with melatonin or sleep hygiene tips will never work, because those interventions do not address the glucose instability that is triggering the awakening in the first place. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care has documented that nocturnal hypoglycemia, even mild episodes that do not reach clinical thresholds, is associated with disrupted sleep architecture, increased nighttime awakenings, and reduced time spent in deep restorative sleep stages in older adults. A separate study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that overnight glucose variability, the degree to which blood sugar swings up and down during sleep, was an independent predictor of poor sleep quality in adults over 55, even in those without a formal diabetes diagnosis. The drink is chamomile tea. And I understand if that sounds underwhelming. It sounds like something your grandmother would suggest. But the clinical evidence behind chamomile for both glycemic control and sleep quality in older adults is substantially stronger than most people realize, and the mechanisms are specific and well documented. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Complementary Therapies in Medicine studied adults with type 2 diabetes who consumed chamomile tea 3 times daily for 8 weeks. The chamomile group showed significant reductions in glycated hemoglobin, which is the long-term blood sugar stability marker, and significant reductions in fasting blood glucose compared to the control group. The active compounds responsible are a class of flavonoids, primarily apigenin, which research has shown to improve insulin sensitivity at the cellular level by enhancing the function of insulin receptors on muscle and liver tissue. In simpler terms, apigenin helps the cells that are supposed to absorb glucose from the bloodstream do their job more efficiently. When insulin works better, the pancreas does not need to overshoot. When the pancreas does not overshoot, blood sugar does not crash at 2 in the morning. When blood sugar does not crash, the adrenal glands do not fire cortisol and adrenaline. When the stress hormones do not fire, you stay asleep. That is the chain. And chamomile intervenes at the very first link. Now here's the sleep side, because chamomile does not just lower glucose. The same compound apigenin has a direct effect on the central nervous system that is entirely separate from its metabolic function. Apigenin binds to benzodiazepine receptors in the brain, the same receptors targeted by prescription sleep medications like diazepam, but with a much milder and non-addictive effect. It produces mild sedation, reduces sleep onset latency, and promotes the transition into deeper sleep stages. A randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Advanced Nursing studied elderly adults in nursing care facilities who consumed chamomile tea daily. The chamomile group showed statistically significant improvements in sleep quality scores compared to the control group, with reduced nighttime awakenings and improved self-reported restfulness upon waking. Think of it like addressing a house that is both too cold and too noisy at night. Most people try to fix the noise with earplugs, or they try to fix the cold with a heavier blanket. But if one solution fixed the thermostat and muffled the noise simultaneously, you would choose that one every time. Chamomile is that solution. The apigenin stabilizes the thermostat, your blood sugar regulation, and quiets the noise, your neural arousal, through two independent but complementary pathways in a single cup. But here is what most people get wrong, and this is the part that determines whether chamomile actually works for you, or whether you try it once, notice nothing, and move on. The preparation method matters enormously. Most people steep a chamomile tea bag for 2 to 3 minutes in hot water, the same way they would make any other tea. That produces a pleasant-tasting, mildly fragrant beverage with a clinically insignificant concentration of apigenin. The studies that showed measurable effects on both blood glucose and sleep used preparations with substantially higher apigenin concentrations than a standard quick steep produces. Here is how to prepare it correctly. Use 2 tea bags, not 1, or 2 tablespoons of loose-dried chamomile flowers per cup. Use water that has just come off the boil, not warm water, not water that boiled 5 minutes ago, but water at full boiling temperature. Pour it over the chamomile and cover the cup with a small plate or saucer. This is critical. The volatile compounds, including a portion of the apigenin, are carried in the steam. If you leave the cup uncovered, a meaningful percentage of the active compounds escape into the air instead of remaining in the liquid. Steep for a minimum of 10 minutes. Not 3, not 5. 10 full minutes. Covered. The extended steep time allows substantially more apigenin to dissolve into the water. The difference between a 3-minute steep and a 10-minute steep in terms of flavonoid concentration has been measured in food chemistry research. It is not marginal, it is multiple times higher. After 10 minutes, remove the tea bags or strain the flowers. Add a small amount of raw honey, approximately 1 teaspoon. This sounds counterintuitive for a drink that is supposed to help with blood sugar. But a small amount of honey serves a specific physiological purpose. It provides a controlled, low dose of glucose that partially replenishes liver glycogen before sleep. When liver glycogen stores are adequate, the liver is less likely to overcorrect with a large glucose dump at 2 in the morning. You are giving the liver a small deposit so it does not need to make a large emergency withdrawal later. Research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food has documented that raw honey produces a lower glycemic response than refined sugar and does not produce the same insulin overshoot pattern. 1 teaspoon is sufficient. More than that shifts the balance in the wrong direction. Optionally, add a thin slice of fresh ginger. Ginger contains gingerols, which research published in the European Journal of Pharmacology has shown to support glucose uptake by muscle cells independent of insulin. This provides a secondary glucose-clearing pathway that works alongside the apigenin-enhanced insulin sensitivity from the chamomile. The ginger also slows gastric emptying slightly. which extends the absorption window and creates a more gradual glucose effect from the honey rather than a sharp, small spike. Drink this 30 to 60 minutes before bed, not immediately before lying down. The 30 to 60-minute window allows the apigenin to begin binding to receptors and the mild glucose from the honey to begin replenishing liver glycogen before you enter sleep. If you drink it and lie down immediately, the digestive process competes with the sleep onset process, and the active compounds have not yet reached meaningful blood concentrations. The timing is part of the mechanism. Now let me give you the complete protocol. I call it the evening reset. Step 1. Eat your last meal at least 3 hours before bed. This gives your dinner glucose time to clear before the overnight fasting period begins. If you eat dinner at 6 and go to bed at 10, the 3-hour window is built in. If you eat at 8 and go to bed at 10, the overlap between active digestion and sleep onset disrupts both glucose regulation and sleep architecture. Step 2. Prepare the chamomile tea using the method I just described. 2 bags or 2 tablespoons loose flowers, full boiling water, covered steep for 10 minutes. 1 teaspoon raw honey. Optional thin slice of fresh ginger. Step 3. Drink the full cup 30 to 60 minutes before your planned bedtime. Sit. Do not scroll your phone. Do not watch the news. The cortisol reduction from the apigenin is partially offset by the cortisol elevation from stimulating content. Let the drink do its work in a low-stimulation environment. Step 4. When you get into bed, your blood sugar is gently stabilized by the honey and ginger, providing a controlled low-dose glycogen deposit. Your neural arousal is reduced by the apigenin binding to calming receptors. Your insulin sensitivity has been mildly enhanced so that any residual glucose from dinner is being cleared more efficiently. The conditions for the midnight glucose rebound have been meaningfully reduced. Step 5. Be consistent for at least 14 consecutive nights before evaluating. The blood glucose effects of chamomile in the clinical trials were measured after weeks of consistent use, not after a single cup. The sleep architecture improvements also accumulated over time. One night will not produce a dramatic result. 14 consecutive nights allows the metabolic and neurological effects to build to measurable levels. 1 cup, 5 steps. 30 days of consistency for full effect. No prescription, no supplement capsules, no melatonin dependency. A drink that your great-grandmother could have made with ingredients that cost less than $1 per serving. Which part of this was new to you? The midnight glucose rebound, the preparation method, or the honey mechanism? Drop your answer in the comments. I am asking because the most common answer tells me where the biggest gap in understanding is, and that directly shapes the next video I make on this topic. I want to put this in perspective for a moment. Sleep after 60 is not a luxury. It is a clinical variable that affects every other system in your body. During deep sleep, your brain clears metabolic waste products through the glymphatic system. Your muscles repair, your immune system recalibrates, your growth hormone peaks, your blood pressure drops to its lowest restorative point. Every hour of deep sleep that the midnight glucose rebound steals from you is an hour of repair that your body does not get back the next day. It accumulates, week after week, month after month. The fatigue that most people over 60 attribute to aging is, in many cases, attributable to lost deep sleep that was interrupted by a metabolic event they never knew was happening. You cannot supplement your way out of bad sleep. You cannot exercise your way out of bad sleep. You have to fix the interruption itself. And when that interruption is metabolic, the fix is metabolic. A cup of properly prepared chamomile tea with a teaspoon of honey and a slice of ginger is not a folk remedy. It is a delivery vehicle for a specific flavonoid, apigenin, that clinical trials have shown to improve both glycemic stability and sleep quality through 2 independent and well-documented biological pathways. It costs almost nothing. It carries no side effects at normal consumption levels, and it addresses the root cause of the most common sleep disruption pattern in adults over 60. The simplest interventions are still the ones most people overlook because they do not come in a bottle with a medical label. But your body does not care about the packaging. It cares about the compound, and the compound is in the cup. Next time I am covering the specific connection between the position you sleep in and how efficiently your brain clears the metabolic waste that accumulates during the day, why one sleeping position has been shown in research to enhance glymphatic drainage by a measurable margin, and why most people over 60 are sleeping in the position that makes that clearance least efficient. That one builds directly on what we discussed today about deep sleep and overnight repair. I am Dr. Reed Ashford. Sleep is not rest. It is repair. Protect it. I will see you in the next one. This video is educational content based on published clinical research on glycemic control and sleep physiology. It is not medical advice. If you have diabetes, are taking blood sugar medication, or have a diagnosed sleep disorder, please consult your physician before making changes to your evening routine. Chamomile may interact with blood-thinning medications. Consult your doctor if you are taking anticoagulants.